This attack was a response to Israel's ground operation against Lebanon. IDF units equipped with heavy armor have been deployed to the borders. Conflicting reports are coming in about Israeli military activity in the border zone on Lebanese territory. The latest news from the Middle East region in our report.
About an hour ago, Iran launched a massive barrage of ballistic missiles at Israel. Reports indicate 400 units, but there could be more. An air raid alert has been declared across Israel. The Iron Dome air defense system is destroying ballistic objects within its range. However, a significant number of missiles have reached their targets. Here, for example, are shots from Tel Aviv. The extent of the attack's consequences is still unknown. President Biden convened an emergency meeting at the White House due to the missile attack. Meanwhile, Iran's actions are a direct result of the IDF operation that began the day before. For a day now, the south of Lebanon and its capital have been subjected to the most intense rocket and bomb attacks. Since September 23rd, when the IDF began attacking Lebanese targets, 1,745 people have died in the country. In the past day alone, 90 civilians have been killed and 172 injured by Israeli strikes. Meanwhile, Lebanon is threatened with a full-scale invasion by Israeli forces. It is currently known for certain that the IDF is conducting a ground operation against Hezbollah in a 5-kilometer border zone. Sabotage groups and possibly regular Israeli army units are operating. Officially, Beirut assesses the situation as extremely alarming. The interim Prime Minister of Lebanon stated that the country is on the brink of the most dangerous and tragic phase in its history. From the Israeli side, there is intense shelling of dozens of settlements, the cities of Tyre, Sidon, Beirut, and areas where Hezbollah might be present. In response, Hezbollah launched a missile strike on the Mossad headquarters and an Israeli military intelligence base. Hits have been recorded on homes and cars on the streets of Tel Aviv. The United States is actively involved in the conflict. Specifically, Washington has urged the Lebanese Army Command to ensure an unconditional ceasefire and not to respond to Israeli army actions. Meanwhile, the White House fears disproportionate measures from Iran after the IDF operation began. American troops are already being deployed to the Middle East in this regard. The White House believes that Israel chose an extremely inappropriate time to start a ground operation. Supporting an ally will require the United States to mobilize resources which may ultimately be insufficient. I will be uncomfortable if Israel does not stop. I would like an immediate ceasefire. However, Israel does not stop, so its opponents are considering the possibility of taking the most serious military measures. Meanwhile, the head of the American Department of Defense has already stated that Tehran will face extremely serious consequences in the event of such an attack. Meanwhile, experts believe that the United States is directly involved not only in the current escalation of the conflict, but also in its long-term nature.
If the hostilities end today, it will still burn for many, many years. This is the Middle East. You can't ignite it. And who's interested in this? Obviously, those who have obstructed the diplomatic resolution of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict for many years. All issues between Shiites and Jews and all nationalities in the Middle East could and should have been resolved diplomatically. As our country Belarus has always said, as Russia has said, as China has said. But who prevented this from happening at the UN? The Americans, the United Kingdom. They do not want peace in the Middle East.
The main responsibility for the escalation in the Middle East undoubtedly lies with the United States. The history of Lebanon, its relations with neighbors, not only Israel, but also Syria, is a vivid illustration of colonial and neo-colonial policies. When the interests of peoples, individual states, and entire regions are sacrificed to this colonial policy. Because at one time responsibility for the region was taken by Great Britain and France after the end of World War I, and then the United States joined in.
The upcoming announcement will be decisive in the fate of the current stage of the confrontation. The Iranian missile attack could be followed by a full-scale Israeli invasion of Lebanon. In this case, the current Third Lebanon War has every chance to surpass the scale of the two previous ones. Many countries in the region will be drawn into it, and the conflict itself has real chances to spill beyond the Middle East. Oleg Romanov, Mikhail Drukov,